morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rob Cameronport, and welcome to the 6th episode of Arcade Leadership. Today I will be discussing continuous improvement and innovation. As a leader, you should always be curious. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. As I mentioned in my previous videos, I was starting my role by stepping back and observing, listening, and understanding how the team or the department conducts their work. What processes and procedures they use. What training materials and tools do they have to complete their tasks. Then I would talk to them about what they think the barriers are, what they're lacking, and how can they be more productive, efficient, or safer doing their work. After figuring out where the gaps are, you develop initiatives for continuous improvements. This doesn't happen right away, although some areas are more urgent to develop than others, but it's about starting the process. You need to challenge the people on their processes. And remember the phrase, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. Well, I don't really believe in that because there is always room to make improvements. You need to motivate your teams to develop and try new ideas, to make their work easier, faster, and more accurate, etc. Believe me, most of the innovative ideas comes from the people that are closest to the work, not you as a leader. Also, ask your clients, what can we do better? Again, learn and listen from the people that are outside your organization. You have to be open and listen to ideas that come from the outside of your organization. You can't have an ego that stops you from becoming better. I will provide you with a recent example from the previous organization I worked at. We had a patented product and we went up against a few larger competitors in the industry. And we were conducting projects for a very large client, and they kept receiving feedback from their contractors in the field that our product was time-consuming to install in certain cases. This feedback was very valuable to me. As we were in the midst of scaling and going to be working with this customer, it was very important for us to listen to their concern and come up with a solution if we wanted to compete. Therefore, I called in on our senior engineers and presented the issue to them and asked them, how can we resolve this issue? And what do they require from me? The customer was also very transparent that efficiency was very important to them. And if we wanted to win more projects, we would be required to present a solution to them. Your team will need to collaborate, have brainstorming sessions, etc. But just ensure that you initiate the process and you set action items and timelines to keep your team and yourself accountable for these items and timelines. Another story I'd like to share with you is from my role as a field manager. Productivity savings was on the corporate scorecard, along with safety and reliability. I'd been in the role for about a year and started to really understand most of the work and what the field did as a day-to-day operations. As I also go to the site and watch and ask a lot of questions. There was one particular task that was inefficient and imposed safety risks. I had an idea that involved one of my supervisors and another subject matter expert from my team to ask them if the idea was feasible. After going through the hurdles, resistance, and dealing with negativity, we managed to test out the solution, which was successful, and it mitigated the risk and saved both the time and money for the organization. The lesson here is that you need to challenge the status quo. If you believe in something, if I had an opportunity to mitigate a potential hazard in order to keep my employees safe, you bet I was going to speak up. In the next part, I'm going to talk about how to deal with resistance to change. You will know that certain folks on your teams will have the greatest resistance to change. However, you can obtain buy-in from them once you build trust and they can buy into your vision. I've had to deal with this several times in my career, and actually just as recently as last year. After a few months in my role, I made some changes to improve efficiency and productivity. One of my employees was resistant to changes, and I had to have many conversations with this individual to help him clearly understand what I was trying to do. I was very open and honest with him and justified the reasons behind the changes. He would be frustrated at times, and I knew that I needed to get his peers to help train him on certain aspects. And this is where you also need to have some patience too. However, months later, he came by my office and actually thanked me for creating the improvements and assured me that he had bought into them. This was a great sense of achievement for the both of us. Next part, I'd like to talk about some key takeaways from this episode. Always look for productivity savings, efficiencies, or safer ways to conduct work. Challenge your team and raise the bar. Let people own their own ideas. They're not yours. Speak to customers, manufacturers, or vendors about how your organization can improve and make those improvements. Experiment and take risks by constantly generating small wins and learning from the experience. If it isn't broke, don't fix it is an old saying. It's not about fixing, it's about making things better. A car always had 4 wheels and an engine. Why has it evolved so much? Think bigger picture. Risk-taking involves mistakes, failures, disappointments, but you treat them as opportunities for learning and growth. Do you know what the definition of insanity is? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Think about that one. Don't have any fear of trying or fear of failing. Don't what if yourself to death. Innovation means change, and change requires leadership. Leaders see opportunities where others don't. They don't wait for permission or instructions before jumping in. One rule that I include in my list of expectations is if you come to me with a problem, you should have a solution that you're going to propose as well. Now, whether the solution is good or not is irrelevant. It gets people to think in terms of solutions, not just problems. If you're raising problems, you sound like a complainer. I learned this earlier in my leadership career from one of my leaders. They said, Rob, if you see a problem and if you're bringing it to my attention, then be ready to have a solution to propose as well. If I were to solve all of your problems, then what value do you have or your position have? This got me thinking, and they were absolutely correct. And I've passed that down to my teams ever since. And I've challenged my teams to think and become creative. Think outside the box. That will wrap it up for this episode. And please stay tuned for my weekly videos where I will be discussing the various areas of leadership in greater detail to help you become a successful leader. I greatly appreciate your time, and please subscribe to this channel if you found it useful. And send me your comments, your questions, and your feedback, and I'll get back to you promptly. Remember that you don't need a title to lead, and a title doesn't make you a leader. So get out there and practice your leadership. Till next time, have a good one.